Good evening from the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal. This is live streaming coverage of the City of Albuquerque runoff elections, December 9th, 2025. Thanks for joining us. I'm Algernon DeMassa, and I am sitting with the Journal's Capitol reporter, Dan Boyd. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Algernon. We had so much fun doing the live stream last month that we decided to bring it back for the runoff election, and we'll be with you for the next few hours, kind of bringing results and hopefully some insights about the runoff election and some of its implications.
So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started, and then we'll talk about what the city's voters are deciding tonight as polls have just closed. It's 7:02 p.m. So we are live at live.abqjournal.com, and you can chime in with your comments. And a little later on this hour, we're going to take some of your questions. Jeff Grammer is going to be joining us and helping facilitate a conversation so you can interact with us. And share the link and encourage more people to join us, please, if you will. Dan, what are Albuquerque voters deciding tonight?
Yeah, so we are, it feels like more than a month ago since the local election on November 4th, but Albuquerque voters are deciding whether Tim Keller, the incumbent, will remain mayor, or Darren White, the challenger, will become mayor. They were the two top finishers in last month's election, so they advanced to this runoff. There's also two Albuquerque City Council races that voters across the city are voting on, obviously, if they live in those respective districts. And that is a District 1 race between Stephanie Tejas and Joshua Neal. In District 3, between Clarissa Pena, who's the incumbent, and Teresa Garcia, who's the challenger. So those are the three races kind of that we'll be focusing on tonight. Unlike last month where we had races from all over New Mexico, that we were talking about, and other cities electing mayors, tonight the focus is just on Albuquerque. These are the only kind of outstanding races before we really shift our attention to the 2026 election cycle, which kind of has already begun. But
right. And one thing we already know is that there seems to be high interest, despite the fact that there's not a lot of high ticket, there are no federal races or anything like that, there's been a lot of interest so far, at least as of midday today.
Yeah, we didn't know. I mean, I kind of thought that turnout for the runoff election might be down a little bit from the last month's regular election. We got some numbers from Brian Sanderoff, who will be joining us here in a little while, who's been tracking New Mexico politics for a long time and does some polling as well for the Journal. Last month there was about 135,000 voters who cast ballots in the mayoral race. As of 6 o'clock, an hour before polls closed tonight, we were only about 8,000 votes short of matching that. So depending on how that final hour or so goes, we could come close to or even, reach the total from last month's election, which, for a turnout, I think shows that there's some strong voter interest in determining the future of the city for the next 4 years. And I think part of that is just there is a sharp contrast between the two candidates running for mayor.
That's true. And we could dig into that, and then we'll talk about our two city council seats in a moment. But that does seem to be the big story here, as to whether to continue and to give Tim Keller another term in office, or to switch it up with a name that is familiar and a face that is familiar, although maybe not to voters who are actually just joining this story a little bit more recently. I mean, what is the history of Darren White?
Yeah, Darren White has a long history. He was the former cabinet secretary under former Governor Gary Johnson, law enforcement official. He stepped down from the Johnson administration due to his disagreement with the governor on the issue of legalizing drugs. He went on. He's had a career with Bernalillo County. He held also then a position with the city. So he's had a long career, including in the private sector. But he's really kind of based his campaign on change and kind of that we've had 8 years of Tim Keller, and that that issues like crime and homelessness specifically is what he's really focused on, and saying the status quo isn't good enough and we need to do something different. And that's kind of been his message to voters. And we'll find out tonight if that resonates in a city where that has leaned pretty Democratic in recent election cycles, and that'll be the challenge for Darren White, is trying to convince maybe some of those independents or moderate Democrats to vote for him in this runoff.
I think after two terms as mayor, I mean, it gets harder and harder as problems sort of multiply and you have to respond to more things to make a really effective case for yourself for a third term.
Yeah.
How is Mayor Keller trying to make that case to voters?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I think leading up to the last month's election, it was a lot of him kind of defending his record and trying to fend off attacks from his opponents. You know, we had other candidates in that race as well who didn't make the runoff. The dynamic has changed, I think, a little during the runoff, and he's gone on the offensive a little bit more, really, I think, trying to link Darren White with to Donald Trump, you know, and some of his policies, and being a little more aggressive in his own campaigning. But I think Tim Keller has also, you know, he's acknowledged that in his words, the city has made progress, but you know, there's more to be done, and that the job isn't done, and that's why he's asking for a third term, which would be unprecedented in Albuquerque. We've had mayors serve 3 terms, but never 3 consecutive terms. So, you know, history could be made tonight, but I think the showing that Tim Keller got 36% of the vote last month, you know, does show that some people, it's hard being an incumbent 2 terms. You know, people, I think sometimes do get tired of the status quo and want something different. So that's been his challenge, is to try to make that case for why he should get another 4 years after already being mayor for the last 8 years.
That's right. Now, Districts 1 and Districts 3 on the city council are choosing new representatives tonight. These are both on the west side. And what do we know about the candidates here?
Yeah, so I you know, I've been some of our colleagues have been doing some interesting coverage of those races, and I think the big picture takeaway of those races is it could really kind of shape the direction of the city council in Albuquerque. If Stephanie Tellez and Teresa Garcia were to win, they're both more progressive Democrats, and that could kind of take the city council in a more progressive direction. You know, if Tim Keller is to win, that would give him maybe a little bit, you know, less of kind of you know, a pushback from the city council would be my. But you know, it's always hard to predict how these things are going to shape up. The District 3 race, Clarissa Pena is the incumbent as well. She's been in office. She was first elected in 2013, so been in city council even longer than Tim Keller has been mayor. So that's been an interesting race. There's been some issues that have come up about Teresa Garcia that we've written about a little bit, and some of her kind of background and some personal and kind of legal issues that she's dealt with. And so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of resonates with voters, and you know, which direction they decide to go.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of storylines in this election that have come up since the initial election night, coming up to this runoff. By having the election in November and then another month of campaigning, there have been some tactics that have been rather theatrical and a little bit dirty. And I think one thing that comes up to mind right away in the mayoral contest is this matter of sweatshirts. And so I don't remember about how many, but a number of these yellow sweatshirts with prominent lettering saying "I heart Tim Keller" started appearing on a number of people who were unhoused. And what seemed like a prank also had a little bit of a dark tint to it, in that you had people in rather desperate circumstances being used as political props. Have we been able to ferret out who was behind that, or what the motivation might have been?
Yeah, I mean, we have some clues. We still don't know exactly the individual or individuals haven't come forward. You know, we were told by Paul Gessing, who runs a local blog, and he was the first one to kind of post photos of this, that he knows who the individual is, and he thinks that its intent was to draw attention to Tim Keller's policies toward the homeless, which, you know, as we've talked about, has been a major issue in this year's campaign. And Albuquerque's homeless population has increased, you know, even under these kind of point in time counts, which probably undercount the actual number of unhoused individuals. But so kind of given that backdrop, it's kind of been a mystery, but also, like you said, I mean, the people who are affected by it, our colleague Jillian Barkhurst went out and talked to some of the folks, and some of them didn't even know who Tim Keller was, or, you know, kind of even know that they were in the middle of this political controversy, or however you want to describe it. So yeah, that's been a surprise. One of those issues that comes up in the final week of a campaign. And you know, the White campaign has said that, you know, they weren't involved. The Keller campaign has also said they clearly weren't involved. So it's kind of become a political caper, but then, you know, also drawn some attention to yeah, is this cruel way to be kind of using unhoused individuals as political props in the final week of an election?
That's right. Just before we go on to the next topic, just a reminder to everybody joining us that you can follow along our live stream tonight of the runoff elections in the city of Albuquerque. We're at live.abqjournal.com online. We'll be taking questions and we'll respond to some of those beginning around 7:35. So in about 25 minutes. So and please feel free to share that link on your socials and invite more people to the party. We'd like to hear from you if you voted today. What is it that brought you out to the polls today? Are you looking for change at City Hall? Do you think that the course that we're on is still one that you feel confident in? What are some of the things that you feel Albuquerque needs to address? Every election is kind of an opportunity for a country, a city, a state to think about the story and where it is in that story. And so what are the chapters that you foresee? What is it that you want to see and what you hope new representation will bring? So let us know. We'd like to hear your thoughts. Dan, there was also on this same topic, we actually ran a story about city council candidate Teresa Garcia. And so just to quickly recap, the Journal always does a candidate survey where the candidates answer a number of questions. And one of those questions is, have you ever been arrested? Have you ever been charged with a crime? Candidate Garcia answered no, very simple no. It came to light after the election. It came to the attention to our reporter staff that, in fact, there had been a criminal charge and Garcia had actually gone to trial and been found not guilty. And that remained on the record. And so we did a report about it. And as our editor-in-chief, Jay Newton Small, wrote in an editorial, the reason that we chose to do that story, and there are some ethical considerations here that are actually rather interesting to examine. Primarily, it just came down to the truthfulness of that response and not disclosing that there had been some history here. And candidate Garcia did respond to that and said that this it was a domestic abuse related charge that she said was false. She was acquitted. She said that actually, and it is a fact that very often in cases where there is domestic abuse in a household, false accusations are brought to kind of use the justice system as a weapon. She claims that this is what happened in her case. And she, of course, has devoted her life and her career to being an advocate for domestic violence victims. And so she didn't want to tell that story initially. Eventually she did once this reporting came to light. That's very difficult reporting to do. And, again, there were accusations that this was some sort of a dirty trick by Garcia's opponent, but we don't know that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the information was out there with public records. I think Teresa Garcia said she thought those court records had been expunged, and clearly they hadn't been, so they were out there. But I think you summed it up well. I mean, it is a question we ask candidates every year, whether from congressional races, gubernatorial, local elections too, these kind of boilerplate questions. And, I saw a video that she kind of posted after the fact, and she did take ownership for it, and said she thought it had been expunged, but that clearly it wasn't. But that she also felt, somewhat re-traumatized by this bringing being kind of brought into the public domain. And I guess that gets to kind of some of those ethical issues you were talking about. But clearly, I think that's become a major theme in that city council runoff race, with her and her opponent, Clarissa Pena.
That's right. Before we go much further, we actually have some assistance from sponsors for this live stream. And I believe we are ready to hear from one of those sponsors right now.
Grew up in a small town, and there weren't many lawyers in a small town, and none of them spoke Spanish. Clients will come in, and they'll ask me if I speak Spanish, and then when I tell them that I do, they feel a lot more relaxed.
When people call us, they need someone they can trust. We are a big team of attorneys. We know how to get results for our clients. We have the resources here to outwork the largest companies in the world.
We have the horsepower to hold these companies accountable.
That's our history. We win, and we win big.
Increase in sales of fake pills on social media platforms. The fentanyl epidemic continues to grow, especially amongst high school students. It's now the leading cause of overdose.
You know I'm here for you. If you need any help.
Mom, I think I need help.
Keep NM alive. It starts with a conversation.
And we are back in the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal with live streaming coverage of tonight's runoff elections in the city of Albuquerque. I'm Algernon DeMassa. This is Dan Boyd. We are live online at live.abqjournal.com, and we'll be taking your questions and answering some of them in about 15-20 minutes. And yes, so thank you for joining us, and please do feel free to drop us a comment and leave us a note also about your voting experience. Was it smooth? I mean, there's been pretty impressive turnout for a municipal runoff election, and we'd love to hear how your voting process went. Did that go smoothly? This is an example that people will point to when they have an argument about ranked choice or instant runoff voting. For one thing, there's expense involved. We have some numbers on the expense of running this sort of election night part two.
Yeah, and that's one thing we talked about, I think, last month some about how Santa Fe and Las Cruces in particular have gone to ranked choice voting, which is also known as an instant runoff. So it is interesting that we're here a month later. Santa Fe's already picked its new mayor, preparing to transition, and here in Albuquerque, having this runoff election, that is set under the city charter. There have been attempts, I believe, last year in Albuquerque to implement ranked choice voting, and that failed. There have been some folks this year. We've got the estimate from the Bernalillo County Clerk's office that it will cost $1.6 million to run the runoff election tonight. That includes all the early voting, over the last week and polling sites today and all of that. But that expense could be avoided by switching to runoff voting. But I think it's clear that there's still some opposition to that idea. Some people who are uncomfortable with switching, and I do think the outcome of the city council races tonight, could, in a way, determine whether that's something Albuquerque gets serious about and maybe implements going forward.
Yeah, and I'm interested in what the perceptions are. If you're leaving a comment, that's another question I'd love to hear from you about is what are your perceptions of ranked choice voting? Very briefly, this is a ballot that allows you to pick your first choice candidate, your second choice, your third choice, and so on. But that's also optional. You can also just pick your one candidate and leave it at that. And then what happens is that instead of coming back for a runoff in a month, you have that all on a single ballot. And then the way the ballots are tabulated, you essentially have a series of runoff elections within the tabulating machine. And then if you go to the Secretary of State's website, and look at, for instance, the most recent Las Cruces municipal election, one of the city council contests was decided by ranked choice. There were several candidates, and you can see right on the website in a very orderly way, you can see actually each round of the vote count. And so you can see how the winning candidate, city council person John Munoz, prevailed in that contest over the field. It's but it is a very different way to think about voting. If you're used to the one and done first person past the finish line, and I know because I report in Las Cruces, and so Las Cruces has had ranked choice voting elections since 2019 for city elections only, and we've had 2 mayoral elections under this system, and sometimes not even the candidates are clear about how it works. It's a little strange. And then where something is unfamiliar or a little bit mysterious, there's suspicion about how it works, a sense that it's not transparent, even if it is, and suspicion about how that outcome is. It also changes the political calculus. And we in Las Cruces, we even saw candidates start to do things like say, okay, rank me first, but rank him second, right? And so you almost had people coming up with a ticket in a way of aligned candidates to help, for instance, in Las Cruces, where for several cycles there have been a lot of progressive candidates getting elected. The more conservative voters want to know, and it's a nonpartisan contest, and so the more conservative voters might want to know who more or less aligns with the vision that they would like to see implemented. And so it's a very interesting proposition, and I don't know if Albuquerque goes that way or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really does change the strategy, even for voters, the mindset going in. If my preferred candidate might not win, who do I rank number two in case they? But to be clear, for people who maybe don't follow this as closely, I mean, it's not a traditional runoff election or ranked choice voting. I mean, some places just do a runoff, and even if a candidate doesn't get 50%, they're the winner. So there are different formats under Albuquerque's system. One candidate, if no one reaches 50%, that's when it goes to the runoff election. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Albuquerque and Gallup are the only New Mexico cities that still have this kind of traditional runoff. Which has its pros and cons, right? I mean, we've seen, like we talked about now, this kind of two-person face-off between Tim Keller and Darren White over the last month, which you don't really get that in a race when there's 8 candidates running, and so that's really, I think, allowed voters to contrast the two candidates, and I think we saw a lot higher early voting actually during this runoff election than we did during the regular. And maybe some of that was voters still trying to make up their minds, among 5 candidates or 6 candidates, I believe it was, who's my favorite. Whereas when it's down to the final 2, it's kind of an easier decision. So I think I think this election and Albuquerque going to this runoff and the cost of it, could give some momentum to ranked choice voting. Whether or not people, like you said, are comfortable with that yet, and it does take, even in Santa Fe, it's people are. I think it's been since 2018 there since it's been implemented, and folks are still kind of getting used to it and exactly how does it work. But I was struck on election night in Santa Fe watching the county clerk up there, read out these rounds of voting, and it took about a minute. I mean, it was not a long drawn out process. I mean, the computer just, like you said, goes through a few rounds, someone's eliminated, and you have a winner. So
yeah, exactly. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We have reporters in the field tonight. We have reporters attending watch parties out in Albuquerque, and we also have some video clips from the debates. We don't have those ready quite yet, but those might be coming soon as well. And we have Brian Sanderoff joining us shortly.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about. We had Brian on the show with us last month as well, and he usually joins KOAT as well to provide some expertise and insight. So we appreciate him making a few minutes to join us. But we just before we go to that, we don't have any official numbers yet. I think we'll probably be expecting those maybe before 8 o'clock. It just kind of depends. I know last month county clerk's office waited until there was no more voters in line to cast ballots before they kind of released this tally of absentee votes and early votes that they had kind of tabulated but not released until polls closed. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that, and as soon as we get any results, we'll bring those to you, and we'll show them to you as well, and kind of start going over those.
Wonderful. And we were just talking about talking a little bit about the voters' experience with ranked choice voting. And another thing about municipal elections is that they tend to be nonpartisan, and so the political parties are not appearing on the ballot next to the candidates' names. And I think you can have a conversation there about whether that's a benefit or not. I mean, I think some people use political affiliation still as an important mark of measuring a candidate. And I think that's a traditional way of thinking about it, but it could also put more emphasis on solutions to municipal problems and to put an emphasis on governance. Do you have sort of a take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly a way, these local elections in a lot of way, I think affect people's day-to-day lives, whether it's the issue of potholes, on your streets or your local parks. And certainly in Albuquerque, we've seen that. I think crime and homelessness have kind of emerged as these dual issues that have really dominated a lot of the discourse. And Tim Keller has even said, even though he's repeated that the stats are going down for some different crime rates, but that he gets that people don't feel safe. And sometimes I think that perception, matters a lot. You can present all the numbers you want, but if voters feel a certain way or feel a certain mood, that can be hard to kind of dissuade somebody from those feelings that are out there in the community.
Okay. Well, actually, on that note, we have some video of voter reactions, and so I think that's ready. We'll go to that now.
Voting's important. You can't make change unless you vote. I think things are going along just fine the way they are, and sometimes it takes somebody a long time to get things through all the systems to make things better.
I think we need a change here in the city. Things are not changing, and I think it's time for someone else to take over. And I'd like to see, the homeless not in the streets. And I think it's important, that, we have some kind of a shelter for the people that are out in the streets. We need to take care of our people.
It's important that we don't lose our values as human people. Tim Keller isn't perfect, but I think he respects humanity.
Looking for someone who is more law and order, and quite frankly, I suspicious of someone who changes the rules so he can run a third term when it was originally only twice. That's kind of a red flag for me. So, I'd like to see him clamp down on crime and homelessness and the drug problem.
I'd like to see a reduction in crime. I'd like to see more businesses open and places cleaned up and everything in that nature there, that kind of thing. I think we've got a great city that, and a lot of people like to come here, but they're afraid to come here for crime and stuff like that, which is totally wrong.
And we're going to go to a couple of quick messages from sponsors, and then we'll be back. And that's when we'll talk to Brian Sanderoff.
In your community by serving as a corrections officer with the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you ready to serve with other professionals? New officers start at $22.37 per hour, earn $23.50 after the 10-week academy, and receive a $5,000 hiring incentive. Experienced officers receive up to $10,000.
Are you ready for a career that aligns with your skills and interests? MDC offers opportunities to specialize in over 14 different specialty positions.
Are you ready to take the next step?
We're ready for you. Join our team.
Grateful for this time of year. And I'd like to start by thanking each and every one of our customers, because it's always been about your experience, not ours so much. And to enhance that experience, I'd like to talk about interest rates, factory rebates, dealer cash, customer cash. The trade-in has never been more powerful, and the selection. It's the best it's been all year. So much is going on right here at Mercedes-Benz of Albuquerque. Thank you.
And we're back with live streaming coverage of the City of Albuquerque runoff elections from the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal. I'm Algernon DeMassa, and I'm sitting here with Dan Boyd.
Yeah, we just, Algernon, we're going to go to Brian Sanderoff, as you mentioned here just in a moment. We did just get some of the first numbers for election day today posted, with about 82,000 votes cast, according to our newsroom sources. Tim Keller with 58.4% of the vote, Darren White with 41.6%. Obviously a strong sign for Tim Keller, but clearly a lot of votes still yet to be counted. But that probably includes a fair amount of the early and absentee voting, which can skew a little more Democratic sometimes, with Republican voters more likely to vote on election day. But maybe we can go to Brian Sanderoff here, see if his take on some of these early numbers.
All right. Do we have you, Brian?
Hi, guys. How you all doing?
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Doing great. Well, you just got some late-breaking news there. So
yeah, good timing.
So you said that it was 58% for Keller and 41 or so percent for Darren White?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing so far from the Bernalillo County Clerk's office. So,
okay, that's interesting. Well, would you like me to speak to that, or?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you give us kind of your thoughts on that, and then maybe we can get into some of the turnout kind of trends that we've talked about a little bit earlier as well.
Sure. So, as you noted, what we are looking at, if there's 82,000 votes, is that would be in one jump. The county clerk and secretary of state has released the absentee and the early vote. And so you're looking at right there, 82,000, 2/3 of the vote right there. One interesting thing that happened was that turnout turned out to be a lot bigger early in person than it was on election day. But the total turnout was very good, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as I look at those numbers, what we have to remember is that 18,000 of those 82,000 were absentee voters, mail voters, and those were skewed incredibly Democratic. Very, very few Republicans vote through the mail. Although the early vote, 65,000 worth, should be somewhat representative of things. And so I guess my instant analysis is the 58% will go down, but it won't necessarily go down an earth-shaking amount, because this is a large share of the votes. And the election day vote, if you look at the Democrat-Republican proportions of the election day vote, it's very similar to the early vote. So this is very good news for Tim Keller.
And we'll get back to you, Brian. We also got some preliminary numbers as well from the two city council races. In District 1, Stephanie Tejas so far up with 60% of the votes cast. Her opponent, Joshua Neal, 40%. In the District 3 race, very close race so far based on these early returns. Clarissa Pena leads Teresa Garcia, 50.25% of the vote to 49.75. So within a half of a percentage point. So that one looks like a close one, Brian.
So that one won't be decided tonight. What was it for the Stephanie Tejas race?
That one right now, 60% to 40%.
Oh, 60 for Stephanie Tejas?
Correct.
Yeah. And so, well, that District 1 is a Democratic-leaning district. That's the district where Luis Sanchez, decided to run for mayor instead. So he voluntarily left. And that's not shocking. It does have significance because a conservative Democrat will now be replaced by a more progressive Democrat on the city council. And it sounds like District 3 will be a long night before we know what happens there. That was really interesting. One of the most interesting things about District 3 was that very few people voted. The turnout was really, really low, despite this contentious city council race between two strong candidates. So the voter turnout was very low.
And Brian, we were kind of speculating a little earlier, but what are you surprised at all that turnout for the runoff has been, at least apparently almost as high as last month's election, or maybe, depending on these final hours of today, election day voting, maybe even, as high as last month's election?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, although we saw it coming because of the election day vote. The in-person early vote was so high. I think some people thought that might continue through today. Well, today is just medium, but if you add up all the ways of voting, early, absentee, and election day, we're going to be close to matching the turnout from the November 4th election. And so good turnout, lots of interest and energy among the voters. Looks like it looks really good for Tim Keller. And in the last couple of days, everyone in the gym or in the grocery store, they stop me and they say, well, what's going to happen? And sometimes I'm a little more candid in those situations than in the media, because you don't want to affect influence anyone's results. But we just have to remember, this is Albuquerque. This is a place where, Trump lost New Mexico by only 6 points, but he lost Albuquerque by 20 percentage points. And so it's hard for a conservative candidate to win in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, no, I think the discussion could be different if we're talking about a statewide race and maybe some of that voter fatigue with Tim Keller. But I think that's been the challenge for Darren White, right? Just trying to the math. I mean, the math is tough for him. It makes it an uphill battle from the start in a city like Albuquerque.
Absolutely.
We did get word that District 3 race, Brian, as of right now, there are 18 votes between the two candidates. So
yeah.
So they, like you said, it could be a long night of vote counting, and for our colleagues who are covering that race as well, might be a difficult one to meet deadline with a winner. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you have a moderate Democrat running against a progressive Democrat. You got a 3-term city councilor running against someone relatively new to it all, and boy, that's been a contentious race. We all know about it. It's involved everyone in terms of, ethical and accusations of integrity on both sides, and so pretty rough race.
Yeah. Algernon, you got anything else for Brian?
Well, I'm just wondering, we're talking about the difficulties in having a conservative candidate kind of break through in Albuquerque. And I'm just wondering, did you see Darren White sort of navigate that in terms of how close he is to Donald Trump as the leader of the Republican Party at the moment, or conservatives in state, or did he try to strike a more independent figure to voters in Albuquerque?
I think he tried to present a more, what he called in the debates, a fiercely independent view. And I think to an extent, Darren White is independent. He's got his own radio show. He's gone on record a lot of times saying he's not wild about Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean that the other side won't try and tie Darren White to Donald Trump's policies. And that's what happened. And we saw that in the ads. And so that's what happens in politics. When you have your ads, you try to work what you think perceives as your strong point or your opponent's vulnerabilities, and you pursue it. And so the Keller campaign in the closing weeks really tried to make it a little more of a partisan message and try to bring home the Democrats. And looks like it worked.
Yeah, and I think, there has been a few televised debates. I think all 3 major network stations here in Albuquerque hosted debates. And I think Tim Keller kept hammering that point of Darren White kind of criticizing his response to crime and homelessness, but not offering new kind of solutions. And, in a city like Albuquerque, that may resonate.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's a really big margin. As I say, the margin will drop a little because that includes the absentees, and the absentees are skewed Democrat, but it also includes the 65,000 earlies. And so the only thing that's missing is maybe 46,000 election days. And the election days will probably look similar to the early in person. So there you have it.
Brian, we'll let you go here in a minute. But one other thing I did want to ask you, in last month's election, we saw Alex Ubaez get 19% of the vote. A lot of kind of younger progressive voters in Albuquerque. Do you have any sense whether, the turnout data and kind of these early numbers we've seen, that a lot of those voters might have, gone ultimately with Tim Keller in this runoff election?
I think so. And if you do the math, Keller had 36% in the first round and Ubaez had 19. So you add that up, it's 55. And here Keller's at 58. Now, some of the Ubaez voters did not vote. I'm sure other people who were for some, it's 1/3 of the voters in the November election voted for someone other than these top 2. So there was a lot of switching going on, second choices, so to speak. And so, but yeah, no, it appears as if many of the Ubaez, and I looked at the turnout data. The turnout was okay in the university area. Again, the place where the turnout was awful was in the Southwest Mesa. Here's this contentious race down there in District 3, and no one's voting. But in the university area and in the area north of Lomas, the law school area, the turnout was pretty good.
Well, Brian, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and share some of those insights. I'm sure you've got other duties this evening, but thanks for taking the time to stop by.
You bet. Well, I'm doing this from the KOAT studios, and we have the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock news to do. But I'm glad that we were able to work it out, and I'm glad we even got to see some results as we came on. That's a lot more fortuitous than what happened last month.
Yeah, no, good timing, and we really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Right.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
That was Brian Sanderoff joining us. This is live streaming coverage of the City of Albuquerque runoff elections from the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal. You can follow us along online at live.abqjournal.com. And in a moment, we're going to be going to some of your comments, just some updates from the field. So yes, currently Mayor Tim Keller is leading challenger Darren White by just about 14,000 votes. And Nikayla McClelland, one of our reporters here at the Journal, is at the Darren White watch party, and she reports that there are about 50 people there, including some lawmakers and some other political VIPs. It sounds as though the mood there is still pretty good. The vote count is still kind of early. It's hard to make any conclusions about what's happening quite this soon. Darren White is there, welcoming guests, and the bar is growing increasingly busy, as it does early on in election night. Polls closed at just about 7 p.m., and we're waiting to hear about the results of the mayoral as well as 2 city council elections. We'll have some video from that party in a little bit, but we want to bring in Jeff Grammer if we have Jeff. Jeff is has been preparing some of the comments for us. Hello, Jeff.
What's up, guys? I am apologize. I am not in my newsroom attire with my headset and my nice shirt and coat and all that good stuff. I am on the road. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I am in a luxurious Fairfield Inn in beautiful Richmond.
From
Virginia.
our Richmond, Virginia bureau, we have Jeff Grammer covering the City of Albuquerque elections.
That's right. I am. We spare no expenses here for this Journal runoff election live stream coverage, and I do want to let you guys know that the buzz here in Richmond, Virginia. I mean, everybody's talking about it. I mean, they may not be talking about it really all that much, but you can tell it's on their mind because, well, you could just see it. So rather than giving you guys the buzz here in Richmond, let me give you some of these reader comments. I'm actually going to give you a better looking on the screen here too. I'll give you that right there. So a lot of these comments right now, and a lot of you guys listening that are in YouTube leaving these comments, understand there is a certain tone that we're probably not going to be putting on with a lot of these comments, guys. I am going to go ahead and
sounds colorful.
Yes. And you can go to the Journal's YouTube page to leave a comment. You can also follow along on my X account. It is just, sorry, it is not the Journal's X account. It is my X account you can go to because I have this set up usually for my sports content. And when I kicked on the stream today, there were some issues getting it on the Journal's X account. But YouTube at ABQ Journal is where you can get all of this stuff. You guys are probably watching this from that right now. But if you happen to be on my X account, go over to the Journal YouTube page and leave some comments there, leave some questions. A few of them that we're going to get to right now. Some of these are really from over an hour ago now, or 40 minutes ago, rather, not an hour. But hopefully the voting machines don't add votes like it did in Valencia County. I can't really speak to what that means, obviously, but I did want to use this as an opportunity to ask you guys in the newsroom, have there been any indications from any polling places in town that we've had any problems? Have we been getting any of those kind of reports today?
You know, I haven't heard anything. I know at least one of our colleagues was out, as you saw the video earlier, kind of talking to voters in the field. You know, we haven't heard any issues with voting machines, any irregularities, anything like that. I mean, I haven't heard anything about kind of long lines at the polls either. So we'll certainly keep our ears open to that and open to any kind of observations that people might have had during the day while they're out there voting. But you know, I think Bernalillo County has a pretty strong track record in recent years of you know, accurate and fair voting results. But you know, I know that that's an issue on a lot of people's minds these days, is making sure that the election system is above board and that, you know, kind of the whole one person, one vote thing. So,
and to be clear on this comment here from Wishikin on YouTube, the Valencia County, this might have been a past issue, and I'm certainly not arguing with that. It could be an ongoing issue. I don't know. But what I will say is this election obviously doesn't really have anything to do with Valencia County. So that's just referencing a past indication or a past incident. I don't think we have gotten any reports, certainly not anything major that anybody with the city or any of the election going on, or any of our reporters have been alerted to that I'm aware of. If we are made aware of that, we will certainly mention it here on the show if it's brought to our attention, guys.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, one thing that happens, we're still kind of new in this era of watching election results in real time as they are posted to the Secretary of State's website. You know, as recently as a decade ago, it wasn't really much like that. And so, you know, people will watch the results come in, and the way large numbers of votes will drop all at once can seem a little strange. And I've seen how the way those numbers are reported on screens tends to arouse questions or confusion or just questions about the process. And I know that county clerks' offices have had to respond to that and really try to put out a lot of public education so that when people see these numbers moving around on their computer screen, they have some sense as to why it appears that way, and have some confidence in how the votes are counted and also checked once they're posted.
There's a constant theme of questions in here from the readers, from the viewers, I suppose. I'm so used to saying readers for journal stuff, about homelessness, right? About how there's a debate about the terminologies. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is why we choose certain terms, and why we can't just say homeless all the time. Is that something either of you feel comfortable enough speaking to, what the terminology, what the proper terminology is, and why it isn't a loaded thing, that if a newspaper uses one term, it isn't necessarily, as some comments are suggesting, an indication that we're in the pocket of one political party or the other? What is your guys' explanation to the people that are watching why a newspaper doesn't just use the term that admittedly most people use, which is homelessness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a really good question, and that's kind of a style guide question, which is how do reporters make choices about word language when it comes to issues that really relate to people's vulnerability. And I think what you're referring to is that sometimes people use the word unhoused to describe somebody who is. I think the sense is that sometimes homeless becomes almost a dehumanizing term, or at least it disconnects people from the community where they live, even if they don't have physical housing or they're housing insecure. A lot of people who are unhoused aren't visible because they're not camping out on a street. They are couch surfing. They're spending a week or two at a time with this friend and that family member, and they're harder to track. And so there are those who will argue that unhoused, even though it's a little less familiar, specifically addresses the problem a little bit more closely. But I don't think our newsroom has a strict style guide on that. Homeless is a very commonly understood term, and we use it almost interchangeably. I know that when I write about the issue, sometimes I use the word unhoused when I just want to use a more precise adjective. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think you summed it well. I do sometimes grapple with these word choices, and remembering that, I acknowledge we are talking about people, but also trying to be concise in our terminology. I've dealt with that, some stories with, individuals with developmental disabilities, and how do you kind of compassionately and fairly kind of describe folks, but in a humanizing way, but also sometimes in a way that people understand what you're talking about too. And as journalists, I think that's our job as well, to, communicate issues to the public and make sure they know what we're talking about, but to do it in a way that is humanizing and respectful. So Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think unhoused in a lot of ways may be a more precise term, but you know, I've used the term homeless in past reporting, and I think that is in the public debate, in the public sphere. I mean, homelessness is the term, you know, so I don't think we're trying to avoid that word out of any kind of political agenda or anything like that.
I'll add to it this, and we are, you know, obviously the journal does, you know, have certain policies on certain things, but it depends, and there's some nuance sometimes, and there is an idea that some people that we would otherwise call homeless are they have a home. They might be temporarily unhoused, but they do have a home. Sometimes that is why I think different phrases and different terminology is used, because it isn't a catch-all for anybody we happen to assume is homeless or unhoused, that we just use that phrase for everyone. And it is our job to try and find the best terminology to not only have compassion, but to accurately reflect the situation. And I just think that there's an awful lot of comments in the feed right now talking about that issue, about about the issue that was probably, I think it's fair to say, one of the two primary issues on this campaign, right, or on this during this election cycle. And another one is let me see here. Another.
While you're looking, just also real quickly, I mean, we haven't mentioned the Associated Press style guide, but generally speaking, we use the Associated Press style guide as a way to stay consistent in choices of language like this. And AP's rationale is that you know, a person described as homeless may have actually many homes, or they, you know, may lack a physical structure, but you know, they're in the community where they grew up. And so, you know, unhoused refers to a temporary situation as opposed to characterizing them as people. And that's a point I was trying to make a little earlier. And that's what the AP Style Guide tries to codify.
A couple comments real quick. We'll go through a couple of these real quick. There's a comment here. It's already over with the percentage gap. We have been reporting some results. There are a few comments in here saying these guys aren't reporting any results. We have reported results. About 15 minutes ago is when we first started reporting some of the results that were coming in. And I'm curious what you guys think in terms of that initial dump, which I think Brian said what reflected about 2/3 of what the voting is going to be. How quickly is it that we can probably make some determinations? I'm not saying we're going to call it or anything like that, but how quickly is 2/3 a vote enough, as this comment suggests, that it's already over with that percentage?
Well, Jeff, I mean, I think we just got word from Brian Sanderoff that it looks like, according to him, Tim Keller is the projected winner of the runoff election. So I think we can probably say that a little more definitively now. We had gotten word from one of our photographers on scene that Darren White has, in fact, conceded. You know, still working to get a little more information on that as well. But it looks like that is in fact the case. So we'll try to bring you some video and some you know, some more updates on that. But yeah, looking at those raw numbers, and as Brian Sanderoff talked about a little early, I mean, with 58.4% of the vote counted in you know, more than about 2/3 of the votes cast with these early and absentee voting. I mean, that's a tough deficit to overcome, Algernon, when you're talking about being down 16 percentage points, and if you're Darren White.
Right. Sometimes you get enough in that early vote count that the outcome is clear enough, and we appear to have confirmation that Mayor Tim Keller is projected to have won a third term as mayor. And we also have reports from the watch party that Darren White has conceded.
Yeah, and we got word from just now from a colleague that Darren White said he's called to Tim Keller to congratulate him a few minutes ago. So kind of rare to be before 8 o'clock on an election night to already have a you know, resolution to this. I think we knew going in that Tim Keller was kind of the favorite, just given the as Brian, as we've talked about, just kind of the dynamics and the demographics of the city. But I think he's gonna have a challenge going into a third term, you know, in a city that is divided, that he only got 36% in the first round of voting. And now entering a third term with these issues that don't have easy solutions that we've talked about a little bit. And trying to convince the public that the city is on the right track, and it looks like voters have given him the opportunity to do that. But it's going to be it's not going to be an easy task over the next 4 years.
No, and we don't yet know the outcome of 2 city council elections that are still underway. Those contests are a little bit closer, and we don't have a clear result on that yet. Not so much, not such that we can call, but that's also going to make a huge difference to what the mayor will be able to do in a 3rd term is the constitution of that city council.
Yeah, no, that makes a huge difference. And that's why these 2, like we mentioned, these 2 runoff city council races are so important, because they really could determine how much of his agenda he's able to implement. Clearly that he has his critics on the city council. Dan Lewis won re-election last month. He's been a pretty staunch critic of Tim Keller. He'll still be on the council for another 4 years. But if he does have more of a majority on the council and can, avoid any kind of overrides or things like that of his vetoes, his job becomes a little bit easier. We just got word from Brian Sanderoff as well that the District 1 City Council race can be called in favor of Stephanie Tejas. We had reported earlier that she had a pretty solid lead over Joshua Neal, so she will take the District 1 seat that had been held by Luis Sanchez, who gave it up to run for mayor, but didn't advance the runoff election. He was a Democrat, but fairly moderate Democrat. My understanding is she's maybe a little more progressive Democrat. So at this point, kind of waiting on that District 3 City Council race, which seemed to be really close, like we talked about.
I think my microphone is cut.
I'll keep talking here. I think we're having a few technical difficulties with Algernon. He's still here. He didn't go anywhere. We may have a few videos to bring you as well, but just to get everyone up to speed, we just a few minutes ago projected winner Tim Keller for a 3rd term as Albuquerque mayor. 2 city council runoff elections here in Albuquerque. One of those races has been called. The District 1 race for Stephanie Tejas is the projected winner. Still waiting District 3 between Teresa Garcia and Clarissa Pena, which that race is very neck and neck so far based on early returns. We're still awaiting some of the election day results, which will probably determine that race. And as of our last check, they were 2 candidates were separated by less than 20 votes. So, could be some nail biting going on at those respective watch parties, as people head to the bar and wait for more numbers. I might still be flying solo here for a little bit, but
let's see. Oh no, I'm back.
Oh, you're
I'm
back.
I'm back.
Algernon's back.
So as of a minute ago, Jillian Barkhurst, Journal reporter who is at Mayor Tim Keller's watch party, said he had not yet made an appearance, although Darren White, his challenger, has conceded Mayor Tim Keller has been elected to a 3rd term. And before we get into some more analysis of what's happening tonight, we're going to once again hear from 1 or 2 of the sponsors who brought this live stream to you this evening.
I grew up in a small town, and there weren't many lawyers in a small town, and none of them spoke Spanish. Clients will come in, and they'll ask me if I speak Spanish, and then when I tell them that I do, they feel a lot more relaxed.
When people call us, they need someone they can trust. We are a big team of attorneys.
We know how to get results for our clients. We have the resources here to outwork the largest companies in the world.
We have the horsepower to hold these companies accountable.
That's our history. We win, and we win big.
Increase in sales of fake pills on social media platforms. The fentanyl epidemic continues to grow, especially amongst high school students. It's now the leading cause of overdose.
You know I'm here for you. If you need any help.
Mom, I think I need help.
Keep NM alive. It starts with a conversation.
And we're back. This is live streaming coverage of the City of Albuquerque runoff elections from the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal. I'm Algernon DeMassa. This is Dan Boyd. So, so far, we have called Mayor Tim Keller has been reelected to a 3rd term, and also we have a call in one of the city council contests, but not the other.
Yeah, that's kind of where things sit at this point. I think we're going to shortly here try to play you a few videos from some of the watch parties. We've had colleagues who are out at these watch parties, both for Darren White and Tim Keller. Also have photographers there. So obviously, while we're here talking, people are out there in the field doing work, and we'll be posting those to our website, abqjournal.com. Also still putting out the print edition for those folks who still enjoy checking it out in the morning with a cup of coffee. So a lot going on, and a lot of people here working in the background while we're talking about these latest numbers.
Watch parties are another thing that is changing a lot. That used to be where people found out about the results of an election, and now it's a lot different when you can look at the results on your phone. Just going right to the Secretary of State's website. I live in Deming. And in Deming, the tradition on election night was always everybody would gather at the Luna County Courthouse, and the county clerk would announce the results, and everybody was there. And so that was the chance to shake hands with your opponent in person, no phone calls. It was just, you found out right next to the person you were running against. And now it's different. And people tell me that they missed that was actually kind of a special part of the evening. But we do have reporters out at the watch parties for Mayor Keller and for Darren White. We have word that Darren White has made the concession phone call to Mayor Tim Keller, and I don't think we know yet whether Mayor Keller has spoken to his supporters yet.
I don't think we know that for sure yet either. We haven't certainly heard that yet from our colleagues. I would expect he would be giving, later this evening, giving kind of a victory speech, and it'll be interesting to see kind of the tone he strikes with that speech after what has been a pretty hard fought and contentious race. I mean, certainly we talked earlier about the sweatshirts that became an issue in this final run up to the election, and a lot of the criticisms that Tim Keller has faced. I mean, from Darren White, but also from some members of his own party, even from a candidate like Alex Hubayas, who also kind of ran to the left and had kind of questioned Tim Keller's approach to the unhoused population, homeless population, and crime from a different perspective. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of going forward, kind of address some of these concerns and unite the city. I mean, that might be somewhat naive or optimistic, but we are heading into a big election cycle next year, Algernon, with all statewide races on the ballot, including governor. So we'll be ramping up for another election cycle here just in a matter of months.
I'm not even going to leave this table. I'm just going to stay here. And we have actually some video footage from both watch parties, and we can take a look. I don't know what kind of sound we have, but we have some images just to give you a little bit of color.
This looks like this is the video I believe from Tim Keller's watch party.
Okay.
Earlier. So.
Everybody, if you're in the room for the, I'm just going to say it, the Mayor Keller Celebration Party, make some noise! Knock on wood.
And so that means this next is from Darren White's party. You can tell from the enormous banner in the background. I think I see Representative Gail Armstrong.
Yeah, House Minority Leader Gail Armstrong in the middle of the video there, talking to their folks. So, and I believe, just so folks know, these are not live videos. These were from earlier this evening. So, even though this is an Albuquerque race, as we mentioned, I mean, I think a lot of the eyes of New Mexico are on Albuquerque, obviously being the largest city. Some would say maybe Albuquerque media market is takes on too much of a focus on Albuquerque, but I think with it being the only race going on in the state tonight, a lot of people from around the state are interested to see what happens as well.
Yeah, and I think I always tell people there are several New Mexicos. There are no fewer than 5 New Mexicos, and but Albuquerque is important. I for a mix of reasons, and when I would tell my friends that I was coming up here to help cover tonight, there was a lot of interest, even in Las Cruces for what happens.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that Albuquerque has shifted politically over the last 15, 20 years. I mean, it was a city that before Tim Keller, the mayor was Richard Berry, who was a former Republican state legislator. Heather Wilson, who was a former congresswoman who represented the congressional district based here in Albuquerque. But, over the last 10 years, we've seen it really become a Democratic stronghold. And I think that's made it even harder for Republicans to win on a statewide level, just with these urban population centers being so strongly Democratic, talking about Albuquerque, Las Cruces, and Santa Fe, and just hard for Republicans, even on a statewide level, to kind of offset that advantage that Democrats have built up, and in these kind of increasingly blue population centers. I guess Santa Fe has always been pretty liberal, but we've seen Deb Haaland, Martin Heinrich all come out of these Albuquerque congressional district to these more prominent positions. So it's really become kind of a stepping stone to higher office.
Mm-hmm. We're going to actually be going to reporter Oliver Oderbrook in just a moment. But one question I wanted to ask between the elections, the initial round of mayoral elections last month and tonight's runoff, Alex Ubaez, former U.S. attorney for New Mexico, ran. He did not prevail. And there was kind of a dramatic wait to see whether he was going to endorse Mayor Keller for another term after running against him. He held back that endorsement for quite some time. Was there a negotiation, and do we know what sorts of things he was discussing with the mayor before he could make that endorsement?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting dynamic. I spoke with Alex Ubaez, I think it was a week, maybe 2 weeks after last month's election, and he had met twice with the mayor, but at that time he didn't feel like he was ready to make that endorsement. He had certain things he wanted the mayor to publicly commit to, including some wage kind of labor issues, some issues dealing with the homeless population. So I think Alex Ubaez maybe got a little bit of flack for that as well, for not immediately telling his supporters to vote for Tim Keller. But he did in the final weeks here of the runoff, he did say, that he, supported Tim Keller, and that, Darren White, in his view, would be a dangerous mayor for Albuquerque. So maybe not a, exuberant endorsement, but it was interesting. And I know we talked to Brian a little bit earlier about whether those voters did come, in fact, switch over to Tim Keller for this runoff election, and it looks like at least a number of them did ultimately.
Yeah, it's an interesting moving target as to the role that endorsements play, and whether that's been changing, whether endorsements have a diminished impact on election results. We have, but I want to go to Oliver Oderbrook, and he's on microphone. Do we have him on camera, or is he going to join us? Or yeah.
Here he comes.
Here we go. I'm going to move to my left a little bit, make some room.
Can you hear us all right, Oliver?
Yes, I can hear you. You can hear me.
Great. Well, we understand you were on the phone with Stephanie Tellez, who is the projected winner in City Council District. Oh man,
that's number one.
Is that number one? All right,
I got one. Yeah, that's the middle west side district.
What can you tell us about what she had to say, and kind of her views for going forward?
She said she's, obviously she's very excited about winning. And she won pretty decisively there in District 1. She identifies herself as a Democrat. She said she's always been a Democrat. And she said that reflects the values of Albuquerque. And she's just anxious to get in there and continue the work.
Can we talk a little bit about Tellez's history in office?
Yeah, she's she doesn't have much history in office. She's a forensic accountant and a fraud examiner, which could come in handy at the city council, I would think. She worked for Brian Colon in the auditor's office for 4 years. She was Brian's forensic examiner. And she's, she teaches classes in forensic examining at UNM. And she has her own company. She's got a company that basically teaches companies how to watch out for fraud, educates employees how to keep an eye on fraud and prevent fraud in business. So it will be interesting to see how she deals with the city in financial matters. She identifies herself as a budget expert.
As a budget expert, okay.
Yeah, she
that would come in handy.
she's very quick to call herself a budget expert. So I guess we will see how she responds to budgets, city budgets in the future.
If she's going to make her city manager sweat.
Yes.
What about her challenger?
Well, he's quite a contrast to her. I mean, he's also very professional. He works for Bohannon Houston. He's an engineer, civil engineer. He got a civil engineering degree at Tech. He works with developments. From what he says, he works with very large developments in New Mexico, housing, industrial, commercial. So, I mean, it seems like they both would have been pretty good candidates. He's obviously much more conservative than she is. He's always identified himself as a Republican. So, the voters had a pretty clear choice there.
Did this come down to that sort of political affiliation, or did it come down to their relative experience and expertise? For instance, the budget expert, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if voters were responding to party. The West Side does tend to be more conservative than a lot of other areas of the city. Her district, District 1, just bumps right up to Dan Lewis's district in the north. So, and he's a Republican, and he was elected clearly on November 4th. So it's hard to say. I don't know whether party played a bigger role, whether resume played a bigger role. But at any rate, she was pretty decisively selected.
Wow. And where were you tonight? Where were you at one of the parties, or where did you?
No, I've been sitting right in the line of sight over here.
Nice,
right
people
behind
have
us in
been
the newsroom,
texting me and telling me, "Hey, you're on TV." So,
well, I just tallied, Oliver, and I'm not sure the significance of this, but now with Stephanie Teos's victory, 6 of the 9 members of the city council in Albuquerque will be women. So, so kind of an interesting dynamic. I know we've seen at the Roundhouse increasing number of women, now a majority in the state house. Obviously, a female governor, now 2 female governors in a row. So it seems like that in Albuquerque as well now, with 6 of the 9 city councilors, regardless of the outcome of the other runoff election, but that 6 of the 9 city councilors in Albuquerque will be women going forward.
Oh, we had in Las Cruces, we recently had a 4-year run of an all-female city council as well, and that's changed over the last 2 election cycles.
Yeah. What's going to happen down in District 3 is it's going to be interesting to watch, because at present they're divided by about a half point.
Yeah. Have you heard from Clarissa Pena or Teresa Garcia at all yet tonight?
I haven't spoken with them at this point. It's a little premature to talk with either of them, but
that one,
unless the more recent returns come in decisively one way or another, it may go to a recount.
Yeah, and that under state law, not putting me on the spot, but if the vote count is within a specific margin, that does trigger under state law an automatic recount.
Yeah, apparently if it's within 1 percentage point.
So we may, I thought we were going to put the election to bed tonight. We may not. It may stretch on for another week or 2, but
does that mean
hopefully by
stay?
the end of 2025.
Means I have to stay until there's a
Yes, right. It could be a long night for that race.
Well, thanks for joining us, Oliver. We appreciate you sharing your expertise, and good luck. Hopefully you're able to get that story filed on deadline tonight.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get some sleep
tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, now we're going to very carefully adjust. There we go. Single studio and single camera.
Yeah, we got I think we're doing pretty good given our technical limitations here, but I know we shout out to some of the folks behind the scenes, behind the camera here, who are helping out and helping us kind of keep us posted and running this, running this whole web stream. So if we look like we're not professionals doing this, there's a reason for that. But
well, it is our second go. We introduced this live stream for the elections last month, and this is round 2, implementing some of the lessons that we learned from that experience. We are live at online at live.abqjournal.com. We're also on the Albuquerque Journal's YouTube channel, where you can leave comments, and we are interested in your comments. We're interested in what your thoughts are about this election, individual contests, your voting process today. We've also had some discussions about the relative merits of ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting. If you have feelings about that, whether that would be a good thing for Albuquerque or not, we'd love to hear from you. And I think now, this time also we have sponsors who are helping to bring this service to you. So we'd like to hear from you about how it's working, and we'd also like to introduce you to a couple of those sponsors. So we have very brief messages from one or two of them.
In your community by serving as a corrections officer with the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you ready to serve with other professionals? New officers start at $22.37 per hour, earn $23.50 after the 10-week academy, and receive a $5,000 hiring incentive. Experienced officers receive up to $10,000.
Are you ready for a career that aligns with your skills and interests? MTC offers opportunities to specialize in over 14 different specialty positions.
Are you ready to take the next step?
We're ready for you. Join our team.
Be grateful for this time of year. And I'd like to start by thanking each and every one of our customers, because it's always been about your experience, not ours so much. And to enhance that experience, I'd like to talk about interest rates, factory rebates, dealer cash, customer cash. The trade-in has never been more powerful, and the selection. It's the best it's been all year. So much is going on right here at Mercedes-Benz of Albuquerque. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Those are a couple of our sponsors for this live streaming coverage of the City of Albuquerque runoff elections. We are joined by Nikayla McClelland, Albuquerque Journal reporter. Nikayla, where were you tonight?
Tonight I was at Darren White's watch party.
And how was that?
It was pretty good. We came in and a lot of people started flowing in. Darren White was there for a short amount of time, went to the back, and the next time he came back up was to give his speech and tell people that he unfortunately did not win. And he, addressed his crowd and told everybody how much he appreciated how much they supported him. And he definitely talked about how Albuquerque, New Mexico is a Democratic state as a whole. And so he was fighting against that and public financing as well. But he thanked all his supporters and his family and said that he called to congratulate Keller. And immediately after, there was a crowd of boos and sighs of disappointment. But White addressed everybody and said, thank you for the support.
In his remarks to his supporters, I mean, did he outline any wishes for what he would like to see Mayor Tim Keller do? Did he express any gripes about the process? I mean, people use these concession speeches to do lots of different things. What was sort of like, how did he decide to craft that message?
So there were a couple city councilors like Dan Lewis and Renee Grout there, and he urged his supporters to, back city councilors that believed in the same things that he did. He just urged people to continue to show up, and he said that even though he didn't win, it was clearly a message that a lot of people resonated with, and that hopefully Keller would use some of the things that White talked about to kind of steer his campaign for the future.
And did the party kind of, I'd imagine, clear out a little bit after that, or did you stick around a little while after a speech?
Everyone flowed out fairly quickly. A lot of people, walked up to White to express how disappointed they were and to say that they were sorry. And as everyone was walking out, they just kept saying that they were shocked that this happened and surprised that Albuquerque voted for Keller again, and, expressed their disappointments with everything as a whole, but it cleared out fairly quickly.
So before the result, was clear? I mean, what it sounds as though the room was pretty optimistic before they found out the results.
Certainly. Everyone seemed very confident. And, a couple guests would talk about why they voted for White in the background and some of the things that they supported for him. So as a whole, everybody seemed very optimistic that he was going to win. And as soon as he came out, it almost seemed like it was going to be a celebratory speech. But the moment he said he called to congratulate Keller, everybody knew that White had not won.
And I think, like Algernon and I had been talking earlier, I mean, I think we knew going in it was going to be tough for Darren White, just given the but it seemed, at least to me, to maybe that race being called earlier in the evening than we thought, and maybe maybe Tim Keller able to kind of consolidate some of the vote from last month's election that he didn't get, whereas Darren White, I think, had 31% of the vote last month and now only about at 41% tonight. So maybe just not as much kind of room to grow his voting base. So.
Certainly. And like Darren White had said, he was battling against public financing and a Democratic majority for a state and as a city. So I think while he was disappointed, it wasn't too much of a shock for him. And he definitely just told people, keep on with your message. And if you believe in the things that I believe in, then make sure to express it to people. And just because I'm not a candidate anymore doesn't mean you can't influence your candidates to represent you a little bit better.
And did he say at all kind of what next for him? I'd imagine maybe still wanting to recover from this election cycle for a while. But
yeah. He certainly talked about how tired he was. And, he thanked his campaign manager and said there were a couple times she had to kick me in the butt and remind me to keep going. So he didn't express any future plans yet. I'm curious to know. I'm sure everybody is as well. But hopefully we'll hear back from him soon and we'll see what's next for Darren White.
Our colleague Jillian Barkhurst is over at the Clyde Hotel where Mayor Tim Keller is having a party, and she tells us that the news of the concession has been spreading across that party, and there's signs of elation there and a lot of interest in speaking to the mayor. I guess he has now made his appearance and accepted their congratulations.
Yeah, certainly the opposite of Darren White. But as quickly as everything started, he was quick to tell his supporters the final results.
And I think Nikayla, you brought up something we hadn't talked about, the public campaign financing piece of things. And in Albuquerque, that's a system where if you get enough of these smaller donations, you can qualify for public campaign funds. And in this year's race, as in the race 4 years ago, Tim Keller was the only one who met that threshold. That's kind of sparked some criticism from other candidates that it's kind of an incumbent protection plan. I know Alex Ubaez had kind of made that line of criticism, and I think Darren White as well. I think Darren White, he did raise some significant private fundraising, but I don't think any candidate was able to, at my last check, any candidate was able to match the amount of money that Tim Keller got from public campaign financing. And he got another batch of funding for this runoff election. So kind of right out of the bat. And I think, which could be used for some of the TV ads we saw and things like that. So I appreciate you, bringing that point up as well.
Definitely. Yeah. He brought up the fact that, there were a lot of people in the room who had donated to him, but just wasn't quite enough at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's an interesting case to kind of illustrate that debate about public financing of elections, because on the one hand, people say that they would like to see less influence by private interests and the people who can donate more. On the other hand, we see Mayor Tim Keller benefiting from the public campaign financing system in a way that almost turns that on its head and says, well, now we have the public sector
right.
Benefiting a sitting politician and to the disadvantage of people trying to challenge him. So
yeah, if no one else can qualify for public campaign financing, does it really kind of level the playing field? And there are some statewide races that provide, or at least the opportunity for public campaign financing as well. But races like the gubernatorial race, federal races, do not have public campaign financing options. So I think it'll be interesting to see whether maybe Albuquerque takes a look at some of the details and maybe open to any changes in how that's implemented or not. So I guess we'll find out going forward with this kind of new look city council.
So if you're just joining us, this is live streaming coverage of the city of Albuquerque runoff elections, where so far we know that Mayor Tim Keller has been reelected to a third term. We also have a call in one of the city council elections. Stephanie Tejas has prevailed in that contest by a pretty decisive margin. These are, of course, unofficial results. And in District 3, Clarissa Pena still has a very slim, looks like less than 20 vote edge over Teresa Garcia. So we'll see if that becomes any clearer as more votes are reported.
Yeah, and we just got word that apparently Tim Keller is speaking now to his supporters. We'll be trying to bring you updates and hopefully some video footage of that shortly, but it sounds like he is addressing his supporters at that party, which I imagine is a pretty positive vibe at Tim Keller's party compared to the vibe you talked about at Darren White's this evening. So will be interesting to see, we were talking about earlier, kind of the tone that Tim Keller takes in that victory speech, given some of the criticisms he's faced during this election cycle.
Well, Nikayla, thank you so much for your reporting tonight and for coming and telling us what you saw.
Thank you guys both for hosting.
You bet.
All right, now I'm going to do that discreet sliding, nice and smooth. There we are. Okay, just checking on some. Yes, so now we see that Clarissa Pena is leading in the early unofficial results by 123 votes is what we're seeing, and that's out of 6,000 votes that have been counted so far, or at least that have been reported on the site.
Yeah, and it looks, Algernon looks like that now includes some election day votes having been tallied and added to the tally. So that does, extend her advantage now about 51% of the votes cast to 49% for Teresa Garcia. Still a close margin, but a little bit of a bump there for Clarissa Pena. We'll have to see how many more, election day votes are still out there yet to be tallied. I think that one certainly has not been called yet, but Clarissa Pena seems to be, at least on this latest batch of numbers, building her advantage a little bit more as she seeks another term as a city councilor.
Yeah, definitely trending in a positive direction. It's interesting watching votes come in because it sort of creates this sort of cartoon illusion of a race, but really we don't really know until we have a quantum of the votes that are counted.
Yeah, and according to our colleagues are telling us that is 24 of the 50 precincts reporting. So, right. You combine that with all the early and absentee vote, I'd imagine that's the bulk of the votes have now been counted. But you never know, those votes that are still out there. We've seen that before, can kind of, depending from what precinct they're at, or could kind of swing things. So it does seem like those should be forthcoming. I'd expect here. We haven't heard anything like we talked about earlier. Any problems from any precincts, any issues getting the vote in. It seems like things are going pretty quickly this evening. And, maybe that's partially just with having fewer, only these 2 city council races and the mayoral race. So, not as much vote tabulating as in other races. I mean, a lot of folks in Albuquerque, when they went to the polls, just had one race on the ballot. So pretty quick to, go in, pick your candidate and get out. When you're voting on a different ballot, when there's bond questions, constitutional amendments, things like that, this is a pretty, I guess that is maybe one advantage of a runoff election, but certainly the cost of those ballots is another story.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So the latest is Tejas is still leading 60 to 40, and that's out of nearly 13,000 votes counted and reported so far. We're going to hang on for a little while longer and see if we get any clarity on our third city council contest. And Jeff, I think, is still looking at your comments on YouTube to see if there's anything we can interact with you about. And I think maybe what we'll do at this point is we'll just go one more time to hear from one or two of the sponsors who have brought you this live stream this evening, and we're very grateful to them. And then we'll see where we are.
Mexico Taste the Tradition Holiday Lookbook is here. Find the perfect gift for friends, family, or even yourself. Discover holiday recipes and more to celebrate the rich traditions of New Mexico agriculture. When you choose New Mexico grown products, you're supporting local farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses. This season, give a gift with heart. Visit elevatenmag.com to explore the Taste the Tradition online holiday lookbook today.
Alcohol takes 6 New Mexican lives every day. I was almost one of them.
At one point, I was drinking almost every day. There were many times I'd wake up confused about what happened the night before.
I didn't know who I was when I would drink. I did things I would never do sober.
I could have been one of the 6.
But change is possible and worth it.
You can help yourself or someone you love before it's too late.
Keep NM alive. It starts with a conversation.
And we are back in the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal, live streaming coverage of the city of Albuquerque runoff elections, where we know that Mayor Tim Keller has been reelected to a 3rd term. We also know that Stephanie Tejas has won City Council District 1 seat. And we're still not, the District 3 seat on the City Council is still too close to call. That is between Clarissa Pena, who has a slim lead as the votes counts are coming in, over opponent Clarissa Pena.
And maybe just to kind of go to some of these latest numbers, Algernon, it looks like now Tim Keller, about 58.6% of the votes cast. So fairly decisive victory. I mean, we'll see where the final numbers fall, but Darren White right now about 41, little over 41.4% of the votes cast.
And he has conceded.
As we talked to our colleague Nikayla McClelland a little while bit, we'll be bringing more information, hopefully, about Tim Keller's speech to his supporters on election night. But Tim Keller, leading among early vote, more than doubling Darren White as far as absentee votes, and then leading so far in the election day count. So seems like a positive day for Tim Keller, and now at the helm of Albuquerque for the next 4 years.
Right, and a 3rd consecutive term for a mayor of Albuquerque, which is, I think, a singular achievement.
Yeah, and interestingly, that's on a state level, there are term limits for the Governor. Michelle Lujan Grisham will be stepping down from office at the end of 2026. She served 2 terms. This is her 2nd term now, and is barred under the Constitution from running for a 3rd consecutive term. So on a state level, a 3rd consecutive term is not possible. But here in Albuquerque, it certainly is. And Tim Keller will be setting history as the first person to serve 3 consecutive terms.
It's quite an evening. We're waiting to get clarification on that last city council contest. And in the meantime, after tonight, there's going to be quite a bit of change. The Journal is going to be rolling out a new website pretty soon with a nice new look and some features that I think will make navigating our journalism online a little bit easier. And then one Christmas dinner and one New Year's Eve party away from that, it's going to be time to start getting ready for the legislative session in January.
Yeah, don't remind me. It'll be here before we know it, but yeah, already a lot of chatter about the legislative session. This will be Governor Lujan Grisham's final 30-day session as governor, and kind of her final chance to build to her legacy a little bit. We did get some new revenue estimates on the state level yesterday that, we've seen these amazing revenue growth primarily from the oil and gas industry in the Permian Basin. And while the state is still better off than a lot of other states, that's kind of cooling off. And so that'll be interesting to see how that plays at the Roundhouse, as far as maybe not as much money for new initiatives and things like that. So it'll be a 30-day session, and then after that, jumping right into the 2026 election cycle, which we've talked about, is going to be an important one with all statewide offices on the ballot. U.S. Senator Ben Ray Lujan will also be running for re-election, as well as all of New Mexico's 3 U.S. House seats.
And And we're planning to continue to bring you this sort of live streaming coverage, and we definitely would like to hear your feedback about what you find most useful, what you would like to see that would be useful and helpful to you. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can just drop a comment right there and let us know. We look at those comments and we use them, and certainly we plan on doing this again for the midterm elections next year. Not too much, maybe not for the session.
Maybe not for the session. Hopefully we'll have we did a podcast last year that was kind of new for us. And I know we've been doing those kind of things as well. So trying to, reach folks in different ways. And I think it's been fun doing this live stream and kind of trying to show you a little bit inside of the newsroom and bring you news as it happens, as it comes to us. Kind of a different thing for us, but I think it's been a good experience. Jeff, I don't know if you're still there in Virginia. One question I wanted to ask you was if a runoff between Jason Eck and Tim Keller. I don't know. What do you think?
Wouldn't get to a runoff. I think it's safe to say Jason Eck right now would win any race he ran in the state of New Mexico for getting Lobo football to be something that people want to go watch. Who would have ever thought that? So. And it is funny. I've not yet done it, and I need to, but I'm going to put in a records request. I want to see how many write-in votes Jason Eck got, because I guarantee you there were some people in this town that put Jason Eck on somehow put him in as a write-in candidate. To what you guys were just speaking to a second ago about kind of the future of this little thing, whatever this is we're doing, right? Sports, this has kind of lent itself to sports for years, right? We've been able to do some of these podcasts, guys like me just throw on a ball cap and talk sports all night, and this has worked for that, and we do that quite a bit actually at the Journal. Sean Ryder and I have a weekly show I want people to know about. I also do pregame shows for Lobo basketball here in Virginia tomorrow night. I'll be doing one before the game. We do postgame football shows, but that's all to say that it's just a new tool to get to you guys. And while we've been doing it in sports for a while and it's fun, I think the big benefit is the instant interaction. Unfortunately, when it comes to just an election night, a specific election night, a lot of times it comes down to a couple of people who aren't necessarily putting their names on comments and wanting to talk about one topic or the other, or one candidate and the other, in a way that's not going to be anything constructive to air in a show like this. But the point is, we have instant interaction with you guys when we do stuff like this, you guys being the viewers, the readers, right? And is it as polished as a studio show that you're going to see on television? Nope. And frankly, we don't want it to be. We want this to be who shows up can be a part of it. We want this to be a little bit more relaxed. We don't want it to be unprofessional. And frankly, some of our sports shows, you could argue that they go off the rails. I'll just say that. But we want you guys to be a part of this. Like we know we're the newspaper, and people have opinions about what newspapers are, and newspapers are outdated and nobody reads the newspaper anymore. But you guys are here watching us, and it's because of the newspaper. And maybe that's an outdated term, but we can reach you guys in a whole lot of different ways than just that print edition that comes out every morning. And you can subscribe to help local journalism, help shows like this. abqjournal.com/subscribe is where you could go subscribe to the digital edition. You could subscribe to the print edition, or you could subscribe to either one. Shows like this, just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. If you're listening to any of our podcasts, just follow the podcast. Stuff like that helps. And it's just kind of a whole new era that maybe the Journal was a little behind in catching up to, but we're here now, and we want you guys to be a part of it. We want to bring you guys into the newsroom. We want to bring you guys into the conversation. We're trying to do all of this coverage because we need you guys as an audience to both hopefully be informed by what we're bringing you, but we need to know what you guys think about it too. We need to know what you guys want covered and stuff like that. So you guys are as much a part of this as we are. And I hope that some of you guys watching and listening continue to take advantage of what we're doing, which is opening the door a little bit and opening the channels of communications maybe a little bit more, and in new ways anyway, than we ever have before. So please let us know what you think. We can take it. So let us know what you think, hopefully constructive, but if not, we'll still take it. But reach out to us any way you can. Shows like this, they're going to be a lot more common, and it won't always just be for elections or just one singular big event. I can see the future in this being sort of a regular occurrence where we just talk about the topic of the week or the topic of the month and maybe do a live show that way. And I just want you guys all to sort of take part in that and let us know what you think about ideas like that.
You know, in the podcast space, I mean, we have our sports podcasts, we have an arts podcast, we have a daily news update podcast that's 15 minutes or so of quality time hosted by Gino Gutierrez, and we're doing a lot in that realm to reach people on your commute or wherever you might be listening to podcasts. We'll shortly have some video of Mayor Keller speaking. Just a quick update on the vote count in District 3 for the City Council. We have Clarissa Pena continuing to be ahead by 107 votes or so. We've also got a count of 116,000 votes in the mayoral election, with Mayor Tim Keller, the projected winner, at 57.6 or 57.7%, over challenger Darren White, 42.4%. Darren White conceded that contest earlier this evening, handing the victory over to Mayor Keller.
Yeah, and for some context, I mean, you mentioned 116,000 votes now counted in the mayoral race. There were 135,000 votes cast in the mayoral race last month. So I think this is we've probably got about 80-90% of the vote counted at this point. So obviously still waiting on that one city council race with Clarissa Pena continuing to lead Teresa Garcia. But as you mentioned, by a narrow margin, and it goes to show 107 votes is not a lot. And I think sometimes people feel a little discouraged by our electoral system, or, does my vote count? But I know, Algernon, you did a story last month about some of these smaller towns where, votes or races are routinely decided in New Mexico by a matter of, fewer than 10 votes, or sometimes one vote, or even ties, and we've seen that happen before. So
Deming is a city that I've reported on pretty extensively, and until recently it's changed, but for a very long time in the 2010s, the 2000s and the 2010s, you had this spate of uncontested elections. It was people not running for office and very few people turning out to vote, and so they weren't in the habit. And so even if there was a contest where there were two candidates or more, you had very low turnout for a long time. It was a kind of a chronic problem. And what happened was there was a mayor who was in office for 2 terms, long enough to accumulate some problems and some mistakes. And so he drew some challengers, and then you had more candidates participating. You also had more voters participating. And you really see it in local elections, municipal elections, that a dozen votes or so can actually decide. And so it really does matter. And I think that's harder to see in a national election when you're counting millions of votes as opposed to tens of votes. But that's the case.
And that is, and we haven't talked too much about. I think I mentioned last month, that's one reason that the legislature approved this local election act. Before, we had school board elections, city council, all these other kind of local, all on different dates, and pretty low turnout rates for a lot of those. So that's why now we have these consolidated, in odd numbered years, we have these consolidated elections that most cities in New Mexico have opted into. There's still a few that have not opted into that law, but that's why we see school board, city council, all kind of on the same ballot, with the hopes of improving turnout. And it seems like at least earlier turns it succeeded in that regard. I think 35% turnout in Albuquerque, maybe a little lower statewide last month, but those numbers might not seem great. But I think compared to the past, where sometimes you see really low turnout, that's encouraging. And I think it's encouraging today that Albuquerque recorded a strong turnout for this runoff election.
We can actually, while we're waiting for that video from the Keller party, we can even share that. Okay. Never you mind. I just heard something in my headphones. There's a feature of New Mexico election law that there are, of course, recounts, automatic recounts, if the margin is slim enough, depending on which election that is. in the event that an election is a tie, even after a recount, under New Mexico electional law, that contest is then decided by a game of chance, by lot, according to the word of the statute. But the candidates, as well as a district judge, have to agree on what the contest is. It might be a round of cards. It might be a hand of poker. It could be a roll of the dice. I've actually covered some of these, and it's a fascinating feature of New Mexico law, where at the same time that you have these recent measures to try to really encourage turnout because it matters, and we're telling voters that it matters, there's also the prospect that after the campaign is done.
Hold on. Are you being serious here?
I'm being totally serious. Yeah.
All right. So
I went to.
We're an hour and 45 minutes into the show, and this is what we should have started with. You're telling me that there are places in New Mexico that can have an election determined by a game of Texas Hold'em or some poker game if they wanted to.
It's happened several times. I personally went out to House. House is a very small village over on the eastern border of New Mexico. And they had two actually council contests that ended in tie votes. Again, very low, very small community, very low voter turnout. So it's a little bit more possible in these smaller places. And the county clerk came out to House to have a round of cards, and they drew cards to decide 2 seats on the council. Well, actually, one person just got there and decided to concede on the spot and not draw a card. I think the suspense was too much. And then the other ones, they just drew, and the high card got to sit on the village council for 4 years.
When you're talking gambling, the house always wins. So I'm glad that was the location that this worked. I'm curious, like, when. I mean, could you imagine something like that happening in a bigger city? It would. It almost seems as if that's something that needs to be changed legally, but maybe not. Maybe there's some charm to it that we don't want to change that.
I love it. I want to do that story every election cycle. I want to go somewhere where 2 school board candidates find themselves shooting craps to decide who's on the school board. I maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it's a wicked pleasure, but
we do got a comment right here on YouTube. Drawing cards. Yep, that's New Mexico.
I think, not to be the party pooper. I think in Albuquerque, or place when you get a lot more votes cast, the odds of that happening are probably a lot lower of a tie vote, but. I don't think the state election code specifies, only under a certain population. So it is theoretically possible in Albuquerque. I don't believe it's
don't yuck my yum. I am enjoying the thought of Albuquerque being in a high card wins kind of city for the next election. So,
well, maybe we should have asked Darren White and Tim Keller what their game of choice would have been, to break the tie on this year's race. But.
Well, Mayor Keller is not playing Texas Hold'em or rolling dice tonight. He is the projected winner, and we have some video from his victory speech, I think.
Defiance of efforts that were done to try and divide us and to try and turn us back, whether it was a president or whether it was a former sheriff. Tonight, we stood up for Albuquerque. And so we stand with our families, all of our families here, whether they're chosen or whether we're born into it, because that's how it is here in Albuquerque. Our families are the most important things in our lives, and we will defend our families, whether it's from a president or whether it's from a sheriff. And so tonight we stand together, also on the cusp of history. Because voters granted us something very, very special. Something also that is critical in these tough times. It's a mandate to push forward, and it's also a challenge to rise to the occasion. That is what our next 4 years is going to be all about. It's truly been a hashtag nothing comes easy campaign for us. But you know what? It should be. You want to lead the largest city in the state of New Mexico, the commercial capital of New Mexico, during these tough times. You gotta earn it. and you want to do it 3 times, you got to earn it and then some. And that's what we did tonight. So from our commitment to public financing, which by the way, I think all elections should be public financed. Someday, that's what we should have in America. But also to that first house party at my in-laws' house at the Kistons. To my mom's prayers for me, like all the time. Every minute, every day, she's right here. And to the volunteers, some that have been with me for 18 years. It's hard to believe that's when I got started. Thank you for taking a chance on me. And also to the folks who came along, whether it was last year or whether it was yesterday, saying this race is so important, I want to do anything I can to help. I just also want to let you know too today, to everyone who voted, number one, but also all those awesome New Mexico things, the horn honks, the thumbs up, the you got this, Karen. We believe in you. We believe in our city. Thank you for standing up for us. Thank you today for helping us see this through.
And that is Mayor Tim Keller celebrating the victory as he walks into his 3rd consecutive term as mayor of Albuquerque.
Yeah, I thought some interesting remarks there. I'm curious your takeaways, but I think one thing important to note is Albuquerque, by re-electing Tim Keller as mayor, we are in the era of Donald Trump, and voters in the state's largest city have decided to continue with Keller, who has vowed to fight some of Trump's policies, including immigration-related issues here in Albuquerque. Already the city has faced some federal grant funding cuts due to city policies. Albuquerque was named on a sanctuary city list that the U.S. Department of Justice released, and that was one of I think Darren White's messages was maybe to avoid these direct conflicts with the Trump administration. But in electing Keller, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. He's got 4 more years as mayor. Trump has 3 more years as president. So I think we expect to see kind of more of these showdown a little bit between the federal administration and Albuquerque, and we're seeing that some on a state level as well. But we'll see how that kind of plays out going forward.
Yeah, it is interesting. As I've watched the president take an interest in local elections, mayors, governors, even some local legislative contests. I've wondered, whether Albuquerque would be on his sort of public radar. Not so much as in other places, despite the fact that where Albuquerque sits, where New Mexico sits, very close to the border.
Yeah, and to be clear, President Trump did not endorse Darren White, and Darren White said he was an independent figure and would not go along with the Trump administration on all issues. But certainly, I think for Tim Keller, that was one of his tactics on the campaign trail to kind of attempt to link the two of them together. And now kind of, we just heard him in those remarks talking a little bit about protecting all members of the community. And, certainly I think going forward and depending on the outcome of these city council races, could he have even more of a mandate to double down on some of these policies?
That's absolutely right. Is there one sort of obvious item that Mayor Keller is going to have to address coming out of this and walking into his 3rd term?
I think clearly the homeless, the unhoused situation, his administration has more work to do on that issue. It's a problem that's not easily solvable, but I think it's very visible in Albuquerque. We heard videos from voters earlier. I think that's going to be a challenging one. I think it'll be interesting to see him we talked about the legislative session starting next month. He has pushed for some tougher crime penalties, things like that, dealing with juvenile offenders. It will be interesting to see if he calls on fellow Democrats to take up some of those issues. A lot of those bills have stalled at the Roundhouse, which is controlled by the Democratic Party in both the House and Senate. The district attorney in Albuquerque, Sam Bregman, has pushed for tougher laws for violent juvenile offenders. And
he's also running for governor, by the way.
He's also running for governor. And Governor Lujan Grisham has also called for that. And despite that, a lot of those proposals haven't gained traction. So I'll be there in Santa Fe, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tim Keller makes a few appearances at the Roundhouse.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And it's also hard to deliver on that because the session that's coming up in January is a 30-day session that's typically relegated to dealing with budget and financial matters and anything else that the governor might try to squeeze in there for 30
Right.
days.
And in Albuquerque, I think Tim Keller does have a certain obvious authority. When it comes to the Roundhouse, he's a former state senator, but he doesn't have as much control over how legislators vote on the issue. And we've seen before that, Albuquerque has a large representation at the Roundhouse, but even members of the legislature from Albuquerque haven't necessarily gone along with what public safety officials in the city have called for when it comes to crime.
Before we revisit our sponsors, just a reminder that Mayor Tim Keller has been reelected. We also have Stephanie Tejas winning the city council election in District 1. And as of a few minutes ago, in District 3, Clarissa Pena was ahead by some 72 votes. Another number that we're watching is the participation in the mayoral election to see if indeed we reach what we reached in the initial round last month. And Dan, it looks like we're getting pretty close.
I think we are getting close. Last I saw, I could bring up the numbers again, but we were up to 122,000 votes cast, I believe, in the mayoral race, which is getting pretty close to the nearly 135,000 votes cast from last month. We're still, as you mentioned, Algernon, watching closely this race between Clarissa Pena and Teresa Garcia, which, as the night has gone on, Clarissa Pena has held a lead, but it's a narrow lead. Based on these latest numbers we're seeing, it's now about 50.5% to 49.5%, so about a 1 percentage point lead. Whether or not that falls within the automatic recount provision, is yet to be seen. I'll double check my knowledge of the election code. If it's within half a percentage point that triggers an automatic recount, I'll double check on that.
Right.
But it's close to that margin.
See, for different elections, it's for different kinds of elections, the threshold changes, which is why.
That's right.
We're just waiting on a few vote centers for their reports to come in. This live stream has been brought to you by a few sponsors, and we're going to hear from one or two of those right now.
I grew up in a small town, and there weren't many lawyers in a small town, and none of them spoke Spanish. Clients will come in, and they'll ask me if I speak Spanish, and then when I tell them that I do, they feel a lot more relaxed.
When people call us, they need someone they can trust. We are a big team of attorneys.
We know how to get results for our clients. We have the resources here to outwork the largest companies in the world.
We have the horsepower to hold these companies accountable.
That's our history. We win, and we win big.
Grateful for this time of year. And I'd like to start by thanking each and every one of our customers, because it's always been about your experience, not ours so much. And to enhance that experience, I'd like to talk about interest rates, factory rebates, dealer cash, customer cash. The trade-in has never been more powerful, and the selection. It's the best it's been all year. So much is going on right here at Mercedes-Benz of Albuquerque. Thank you.
Alcohol takes 6 New Mexican lives every day. I was almost one of them.
At one point, I was drinking almost every day. There were many times I'd wake up confused about what happened the night before.
I didn't know who I was when I would drink. I did things I would never do sober.
I could have been one of the 6.
But change is possible and worth it.
You can help yourself or someone you love before it's too late.
Keep NM alive. It starts with a conversation.
And we're back with live streaming coverage of the city of Albuquerque runoff elections from the newsroom of the Albuquerque Journal. I'm Algernon DeMassa, and this is Dan Boyd. Mayor Tim Keller has won election to a 3rd consecutive term tonight. Stephanie Tejas has won a city council seat in District 1, and District 3 city council seat is still a little close to call with Clarissa Pena leading slightly in votes as they come in. We're still waiting for some more voting centers to report in. We actually have some video of Mayor Keller, and I think Jillian Barkhurst is going to be joining us in just a moment. But let's go to this video from Mayor Keller just a little while ago.
You just, White conceded to you, you had a talk. What did you talk about?
You know, we just appreciated each other. Actually, I think we really had debates about the future of our city, and he was authentically who he is, and he had a vision, and so did I. And I think we actually respected each other on the campaign trail, even though it was so negative. None of us also went really personal, and I think that was also good. We actually did keep it about the issues.
Yeah, and you're the first 3-time consecutive mayor of Albuquerque. What do you think got you here?
You know, fundamentally, it's just the power of community. It's also a reflection that these are tough times. It's the opposite of what people, I think, would have thought. It's because we need strong leadership now more than ever. And so that's something that is certainly, it's a heavy burden, but it's also something that I'm ready for. And that's what the city wanted.
And so that was Mayor Keller, fresh from his victory speech, talking to Journal reporter Jillian Barkhurst at the Clyde Hotel downtown.
Yeah, and I think we have Jillian here in a minute, but before we go to her, you know, I think it's worth pointing out interesting that clearly Darren White and Tim Keller disagreed strongly on the issues and had some strong exchanges over the issues. But I thought it was interesting what Tim Keller said, that on a personal level, that they didn't go negative personally after one another, and actually seemed to even have a little fondness for when I was watching the KOB interview and they had to say one positive thing about each other. And I thought that was maybe in this current political environment we're in, that was somewhat encouraging that they could both, you know, have positive things to say about each other.
That's a risky debate question. I'm glad that didn't go worse than it did. Okay, we now have Jillian Barkhurst, a Journal reporter who was at the Clyde and saw Mayor Keller's speech. Hello, Jillian.
Hi, yeah, I'm here and I hope you can hear me because everyone is celebrating still.
Oh, I see. Wonderful. Yes, we can hear you. So
Okay,
what was the room like as you going into the victory speech and as people found out what the result was?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of anticipation, right? Because a lot of people had known that White had conceded, and Keller didn't come out for about 30 minutes after that. But I saw people crying, hugging. It was pretty. There's a lot of excited people in the room today.
And it seemed that we just, you know, you probably saw aired your interview with Tim Keller as well. I mean, it seems almost a catharsis a little bit for him after a difficult election cycle. And now to be kind of reelected to this, as you mentioned, an unprecedented third consecutive term. I mean, he seemed to be, based on that interview, in pretty positive spirits.
Yeah, no, I mean, he definitely seemed to be elated. And he mentioned in his speech, you know, that this was hard won. He seemed not surprised, but maybe happy to just be done with it all. That was what I would say.
And you know, you talked a little bit about kind of the tone or the environment there at the watch party. I mean, have you seen a lot of other elected officials, city councilors, folks like that who might be in attendance as well?
Yeah, so I haven't seen a ton. I did see several members of the county commission. I did see a lot of Keller staffers. I mean, I'd say probably about half the room is made up of Keller staff. His family is here also. His wife actually opened his speech for him. So I'd say there's a lot of people here, but not as many as I would expect, maybe. But maybe that's because they're drawn to slightly more contentious races. Like, I don't know if Teresa Garcia and Chris in Peña's race has been called yet, but I figure that maybe some people have been there as well.
Yeah, or maybe some people just getting tired of election night parties after, you know, just having one a month ago as well. And this has been, as you mentioned, a long election cycle and a grueling one. You know, it seems like we've been, and I know you've been reporting on it for months as well.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. I will say this election party had Laguna Burger, so I don't know. But yeah, I think a lot of people are happy to put this one to bed.
Yeah, in that your interview with Mayor Keller, he was talking about how it was very contentious at times, but the debate didn't get personal, even when it was kind of at its darkest. That there was still a focus on issues and how to make Albuquerque better. Did you get the sense milling around in that room that matches the sentiment in the room, or was there a little bit more attention to? Was the rivalry more personal?
I mean, I would have to somewhat disagree with Mayor Keller that the race never got personal. I mean, at one point, Darren White called him a pest. So I would say that things got a little vicious. I'd say in this room it was relatively calm, but I definitely heard a couple people, just his supporters, walking around saying, phew. This one woman walked up to me and she said, "All I can say is phew." There was seemingly a sense of relief from some some supporters. So to me, it did seem kind of personal. You were either really for Keller or really against White, is my impression.
Jillian, you got, it's great having you there with the color and being able to see the crowd. Did you any good music coming on when Tim Keller was walking down to give his victory speech, or?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not into metal enough to know what the song was, but he did walk into some metal song, which is pretty signature for him. He calls himself the Metal Mayor, so he did definitely put that brand front and center.
Yeah, I saw kind of even on the lectern there, he had the little Metal Mayor sticker. So.
Well, Jillian, thank you so much for your reporting tonight and for talking to us. I know technically it's a little bit tricky and you're in a loud place, so thank you.
Yeah, I did my best. I hope you guys can hear me, and yeah, it went all right.
No, we could hear you great. We really appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Bye.
So this is live streaming coverage of the City of Albuquerque runoff elections, where Mayor Tim Keller has been elected to a third consecutive term. District 1, Stephanie Tejas has won a seat on the City Council, and District 3 still too close to call while we wait for those final unofficial results to come in. We're going to start to find our end point here, but before we go, this is our second live stream like this, and this time we're very grateful to have some support. And so we're going to hear a couple of very brief messages. Hang in there and meet some of the folks who helped bring this to you tonight.
Mexico Taste the Tradition Holiday Lookbook is here. Find the perfect gift for friends, family, or even yourself. Discover holiday recipes and more to celebrate the rich traditions of New Mexico agriculture. When you choose New Mexico-grown products, you're supporting local farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses. This season, give a gift with heart. Visit elevatenmag.com to explore the Taste the Tradition online holiday lookbook today.
Alcohol takes 6 New Mexican lives every day. I was almost one of them.
At one point, I was drinking almost every day. There were many times I'd wake up confused about what happened the night before.
I didn't know who I was when I would drink. I did things I would never do sober.
I could have been one of the 6.
But change is possible and worth it.
You can help yourself or someone you love before it's too late.
Keep NM alive. It starts with a conversation.
Increase in sales of fake pills on social media platforms. The fentanyl epidemic continues to grow, especially amongst high school students. It's now the leading cause of overdose.
You know I'm here for you. If you need any help.
Mom, I think I need help.
Keep NM alive. It starts with a conversation.
All right. And we'll see in the next couple of minutes if we find out anything about this District 3 City Council election. But if we end up closing without having that result for you, be sure to check abqjournal.com and also to check in the morning with the Leading News podcast produced by the Albuquerque Journal, and we'll have that result for you. I just wanted to point out that apparently Jeff tells us that a lot of the commentary on YouTube, we were talking a little bit about what Mayor Keller will need to jump on right away in his third term. We were talking about how one of the issues that leap forward is the issue of homelessness in the city, and apparently that has dominated the YouTube comments tonight. So there's that small measure of at least what some of the folks joining us on YouTube are about. Jeff, any other trends in the YouTube comments tonight?
Yeah, a lot of the media is both conservative and very liberal. So we're a little bit of both, I guess. And there you go. So I will say this, like, again, your guys' comments, you guys watching are a big part of this as well. Even if we're not getting them onto the air, I know a lot of people are following along on YouTube, as is evident by the fact that there are several hundred comments in here. A lot of them aren't broadcastable, but I will say that at least a good number of you guys are having a nice little conversation on the YouTube comments. But I will say that the theme of the night in a lot of this was, some people that are very disappointed that for the third straight term, the party, and I know it's not a partisan election, but the party that maybe they didn't want to win won. That there are some problems in this city that I think both sides, both candidates agree need to be addressed. And some people feel the Keller had 2 terms to get it done and didn't. Others feel that the way to deal with those problems wouldn't be to do what Darren White said he was going to come in and do. So that's what an election is, right? It's a lot of people saying I wanted it this way and didn't get my way. A lot of people saying, well, I'm glad it happened this way because that's the way I wanted it. And for the most part, that's what we're looking at here in these comments. Not a whole lot of Jason Eck comments. Earlier there were not a whole lot of basketball comments. Earlier there were a couple of those as well. For the most part now, it's just kind of some back and forth going on about really the topics that we already knew, topics you guys have discussed. I do want to ask a ranked choice question to you, Algernon, in particular, on the ranked choice voting. Is that something, and actually, Dan, you as well, is that something that has any kind of momentum to like go statewide? I mean, like, do more people want that?
Well, I mean, that's we've talked about it more on a local level. I mean, it is possible to do it on a statewide level too. I believe Maine is the only state that uses ranked choice voting for statewide elections. Frankly,
Yes.
I probably don't see that happening in the real near future on a statewide level. That said, if there does seem to be some momentum toward ranked choice voting, and we talked a little bit earlier, I think depending on the outcome of these city council runoffs and the one we're still waiting on, I mean, that I expect it to be brought back to the city council, and it may have better odds moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that matters is I don't know if the financial argument that this is a less expensive way to conduct elections is one that really sells the issue. It could be, however, the way that instant runoff voting can mediate against the spoiler effect and allow more candidates, a better range of candidates to participate and let people vote for them without feeling like they're having a spoiler effect that distorts an election outcome. I don't know. I don't know that the momentum, if there is momentum, I don't think it's fast. I think it really takes these municipalities and a state like Maine practicing it over several cycles for people to see that it works okay, and for it to be adopted slowly. We have some. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to sign off with the comments on this. I got 2 quick comments on. You give us some updates, and then you guys can kind of land the plane from there. I will say that there is one comment here that I wanted just to address from Cornelia. She is pointing out that her husband, a Republican, and me, a Democrat, read the paper every day and did not know about the podcast. And look, that's on us. We'll keep figuring out ways to let you know about all our products, including this. So hopefully you guys can try out some of those podcasts, and if it's for you, great. What we're sort of coming to grips with at a newspaper is newspapers aren't for everybody. Digital isn't for everybody. reading your news off your phone isn't for everybody. Some people like listening, some people like watching. We're just going to try and hit you guys with everything we can with in different ways. We're still going to go collect the news, report the news, all that kind of stuff, but we're just going to try and deliver it to you and get it to you in any way we can. But Cornelia, yes, there are some podcasts that we would love for you guys to give a chance. There's one other comment that I'm throwing out here right now because it is probably one of the highlights, maybe of, I was going to say my professional career, but maybe just my life. And that is, get this Ghetto Santa Claus up here to make the Journal seem down the middle. So Ghetto Santa Claus, I assume that means me because it came up when I came on. And Ghetto Santa Claus would like to tell you guys were both very, very, you guys are on the nice list. You guys did a good job tonight. And here we go. Let them know, Ghetto Santa, you need to make yourself know of the Journal will die. Or it's been a long night for a lot of people, including some of our commenters. And Ghetto Santa wants to tell you guys did good. You guys are on the nice list. I appreciate you guys for doing what you did back there, and appreciate all you guys that chimed in on the comments. And we're going to land the plane now with you two kind of giving us some final results and some spin forward on what all this means.
Thank you, Ghetto Santa, otherwise known as Jeff Grammer. So yeah, we do have
I think we got it. Now looks like all 50 vote centers are reporting. Of course, these are still unofficial results. They'll be usually have to be canvassed and they'll be certified, in the coming weeks. But we can now say that 128,381 votes cast in the mayoral race, which is just shy of the nearly 135,000 votes cast.
That's right.
In last month's election. Let's see. Tim Keller's lead over Darren White has been holding pretty steady through the night. It's now at about 57.6% of the votes cast for Keller, about 42.4% for Darren White. And let's see where things are at with that District 3 race.
It looks like Clarissa Pena is leading by 69 votes or so. 6,573 votes cast there, unless that's updated since I got that message. And Tellez, who has already been declared the winner in District 1 City Council, the spread there is Tellez with 59.39% of the vote to her opponent's Joshua Neal with 40.6%, and that's out of 15,207 votes cast. And so
it looks like we'll see. It's not been called yet, but Clarissa Pena might narrowly hold on to her city council seat. But colleagues will be following that and following up on that and seeing if that changes at all, and if it does indeed trigger an automatic recount.
So I think we'll be leaving it there, but be sure to check abqjournal.com for the latest, as well as in the morning if you're discovering our podcasts or you're already a regular listener. Gino Gutierrez will have more information for you in the morning with the Leading News podcast. This has been a wonderful 2 hours to spend with you, live streaming coverage from the Albuquerque Journal newsroom of the runoff elections tonight. I'm Algernon DeMassa.
I'm Dan Boyd. We appreciate you joining us, and we managed to pull this off without Jeff Grammer being in the newsroom. So I think looking, going forward, we're going to be trying to do more of these type of things like we talked about, and trying to bring folks, the news and updates in a more interactive way. And so look for more of these kind of events, and certainly the podcast like we talked about and Jeff talked about, and more to come.
Yes, and thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to the team, including a whole bunch of people who are not in front of this camera tonight who have helped make this possible and keep us on track. And finally, thanks to you for your feedback, the serious feedback and the wild feedback. You are a lively bunch, and we do this for you, and thank you so much for supporting this work.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for watching.